All of this started with a simple idea. I was questioning why I wanted this journey and what I thought it would accomplish. The thing is, this journey was never supposed to be about me. It was meant for something more. It became something more. So here's your invite. Are you ready? Experience the 21 days of swimming, biking, and running. Each day, a new city, a new risk, a new opportunity. But with each new day remained a constant. Another 70 miles that stood in my way of getting closer to my goal. But I wasn't alone. See and hear from others who met up with me along those grueling 21 days. And at the very least, you'll see what became of this journey, this idea, and how it grew to become.
Day 1 of 21. You're going to be on to make the first post, okay, through Insta?
Initial approach was kind of to sort of, I want to say like empower people, but like, you know, everyone kind of deals with, I think, you know, the doubt of some mechanism, you know, whether it's like, you know, I don't know if I can do this, or I don't know if I can do that, you know, and me included.
We are Casco Bay in Freeport, Maine. Ready to rock.
I did not understand the project at all in the beginning. I'm supportive because I'm his wife and I love him and I would do anything for him because I think he would do anything for me. But I didn't get the project. I didn't really feel an emotion towards it other than like, why are you doing this, until I saw the very first trailer, and then that actually did capture me. I got a little bit emotional, and so I thought, okay, now I'm starting to get it, and so I was willing to kind of keep the progress moving forward.
It eventually, you know, kind of adapted itself into this challenge, you know, this 21-day challenge, which basically came from, what if I did 21 days of this, and the 21 days just stemmed from, that's how much vacation time I had. So I was like, what if I just took all the vacation time and try to do this along the East Coast and maybe like meet up with some people and kind of open it up to anybody who wanted to come along. And some of the responses I got was like, oh, I don't know if you could do that. And so that's what kind of convinced me, oh, all right, well, I'm on the right track. If you're kind of already doubting me or thinking that I couldn't do it.
Day 1, that was hotter than I thought, but I feel okay. I feel like I shook out day 1, and so I think it's good to kind of get that under my belt so then I kind of know what to expect. But I think today, like around 11 miles or something like that, I was kind of feeling like it hit me that this is nuts. That was kind of the moment I felt like this is crazy. I think up until that point, I felt like this has just been an idea and it's sort of gotten closer and closer and closer. And then that moment when just step after step after step was just, plus the heat just made me, I think, just go to a difficult spot, you know. But I guess the game plan is one day at a time. So I feel like if I keep thinking about how much more there is to do, then I'm gonna just spin out of control. Like, if I just focus one day at a time. So it's just about tomorrow and each discipline at a time. So when I get back to the run, you know, it's just click off a mile, click off another mile, click off a mile, you know.
One done. One done.
Day 2.
Leading up into it, you know, it was like accepting that this thing's gonna be 21 days. But I think that's such a far off idea before you start. You know, I don't think the depth of it really, at least for me, I didn't grasp it. You know, hardship wise, you know, there's financial ones and there's logistical ones. And I think I underestimated the logistical ones a ton. And financially, you know, I mean, we sold everything.
When it came time to sell our house in order to make the project happen, you know, it was a little bit more of a gulp.
You know, I think it cost way more than anyone thought. And it got to the point where, you know, in order to get it done, we were kind of rocking a hard place. And it was like, hey, are we gonna do this or not? It was literally selling everything we had. But then I think the other layer of that was, you know, one, that was scary in and of itself. I mean, to let everything go that was your normal, right? For something that was an unknown. It's a huge thing. And once you started going, the part that was really difficult was just, you know, we did everything remotely. So we had all these maps done and we had all the pathways done to do it. But we figured out really quickly, like on day 1 or 2, that those maps weren't working. I remember day 2 going on the run, and we had this run course, and it was, I think, the first time someone showed up and ran with me. And the guy shows up and he's like, hey, you know, follow me and we're gonna go on this trail and you can get, you know, it's okay, like we kind of loop around. And I'm thinking, oh, all right, then Talia can find me, and none of that happened. And so I think when I started off, you know, looking back at it now, you know, I had all this like anxious energy and I was ready to just get going. You know, I'd never done 2 back to back. And so I kind of went out firing, if you will, like cracking the throttle and getting through it. And it's like, yeah, that's right, you know. And I got through day 2 and that was my biggest thing of saying like, wow, I can't believe I did that. And then day 3 just went way south.
This is day 3, and not feeling all that great. Haven't been sleeping well, so I have a little bit of a headache.
Day 3 was, I thought it was all over. I woke up just hazy. And, I mean, it's one of the days I remember the strongest just because it's like woke up in a fog, if you will. I had this like migraine developing. We got into the swim piece and it was hot just inside the building, on top of the fact that the pool felt like 90 degrees. So everything was just very sauna, spa-ish.
I think that this is hard. This is nuts.
I came out for the ride and I remember I wasn't really all that focused. It was like hard to focus. I didn't speak much. I just felt like I was dealing with things internally. And that's when I kind of almost fell over. We had pulled over at some point and I was listening to directions and I just kind of remember going, pfft. And my wife Talia was saying, you know, you look white, you don't look right, you know.
I was fearful for him, and I was selfishly a little bit hopeful for me that we were gonna be out of there. But, you know, he is tough and he is strong and he pushed through, and I'm really glad that he did.
I feel hurting. That was 4 hours. Did you notice it's hilly here?
What it boiled down to was I had to take a bunch more salt. And so I was really low on my salt intake just in my normal everyday life. And so I had salt, I had some ice cream, and it was literally like 30 minutes after that, it was like a whole other ball game. Dave and Jana came out for day 3.
Jeff contacted us through our club's website, through our Contact Us, and it was just such a fascinating idea.
Not only did they pull me through that entire day, but they took turns on the run, just helping me get through.
This is a sport that challenges people. This is a sport where people overcome anxieties and inhibitions.
Dave was telling our group about it, and we were all very excited about it. It's a shame that it's a work day, because there would have been a lot more of us here, but I managed to get the day off work with a lot of begging. I was like, no, you don't understand, I really have to do this. I need to see this. This is gonna be great. I wanted to be part of this. I want to support them, because that's what we do as triathletes.
I haven't slept very well for 2 nights. Keep worrying about something. And woke up with a headache. Was thinking, okay, this could go migraine or this could settle out, and it chose migraine. So these rock stars helped me through that. I'll tell you, at mile 42 on the bike, head down, listening to everybody, nods off to the right, almost crashes onto the floor. 10 minutes after that, Tylenol kicks in, boom, headache gone. Freaking knocked out the bike and survived the run, and let's go to bed.
I spent like the next kind of week dealing with that adjustment, the load adjustment of doing that every day. I was hoping that I was going to show people that I was going to have the determination to kind of get to the end. I didn't know at what capacity. I didn't know if I'd still be doing any of them. And I just hoped that determination would possibly show people, like, if this guy can do this maybe above average thing, then, you know, what can I do?
Prior to coming out today, I had only done a sprint triathlon, roughly a half-mile swim, 14-mile bike, I think it was, and then the 3.1 or a 5K at the end.
My buddy Mark Roberts came out. I think we were in Rhode Island, somewhere around there. And I remember being proud of him because he came out just wanting to do, I think, just the ride. And he ends up doing the whole day.
I'm still happy with how today turned out. It was more than I anticipated.
And that to me just started motivating me. I'm like, here's a guy that didn't even want to do like most of this, you know, and he ends up doing most of the day.
The only way to get through it is to get through it. So we're gonna keep pushing on. To see what Jeff was planning, to see the story behind it, kind of the motivation behind it. It's just constant motivation. I think that's what kind of brought me out. Was just seeing where he was going with his journey.
I saw this crazy guy who wants to do 21 half Ironmans in 21 days. I'm like, this guy's crazy, but I want to participate.
Andrew Barber, he came out, another rock star.
I felt very welcome. I mean, he even said, he's like, you know what, just do what you have to do. If you have to stop, stop. The fact that you're out here and you're participating, to him, that was it.
We got lost on the ride, and you know, he fell over, and I'm like, where'd you go, you know? And just one of those days where the road was just not what we thought, and we were just sitting there just struggling. If people can just see me kind of like crush it with a smile, you know, like just dealing with things in a positive way, then, you know, hey, maybe I can do something. You know, I mean, it might sound like a crazy, I don't even know if it's cliche, but I just felt like that's how I'm going to carry myself through it and see what the response is.
I feel tired. Yep. But you know what? I'm impressed myself because this is day 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You get that? 7. Done.
Swimming for me was just, the struggle with that is, for me, was the fear, because a lot of that stuff I tried to keep out of the open water because I didn't know if, you know, how many people would join me, and I didn't want to be out in the middle of a lake with a gator or the ocean with a shark. But I also just feared, like, to be honest with you, crazy stuff goes in my head, like dead bodies and, you know, that sort of thing, you know, like creatures you've never seen, and here I come across it, you know. But so it was a mental thing for that, for sure, to get out there. And then I felt like for biking, it was just the discomfort of the seat, to be honest with you. And it has nothing to do with, I mean, I don't know what seat is a comfortable seat after that many miles. So it was just dealing with getting comfortable with the uncomfortable.
I think it's all right, you know. It feels good to be, the bike was a little bit flat. Had some rock stars to pedal with.
You know, the running was brutal. I mean, just running's just tough in general, but I just feel like the constant pounding, it was something I was trying to deal with my knee, and all the other pains that just seemed to kind of show up out of nowhere. Like I was kind of mentioning, it felt like the body was trying to give you something to make you quit. And then if, you know, what didn't work on one day, it just tries another thing the very next day. But it always hurt to run.
See, that was all psychological on my part. I felt fine.
I know.
just knew that you needed the music and you didn't want me talking to you about trailer wheel wells and stuff. So I just kind of like, stomach's not feeling good.
Go ahead, bud.
Awesome, dude. Crushed the endings, man.
This is my morning ritual. See these greens? Juiced green powder.
I think the Triumph project to me, for what I think it means to him, is that it's a journey of self-exploration, of determination and motivation, and it has grown, but I know that it captured him very quickly and that he was instantly wanting to share it. And so, at that time he was brand new to the sport and he didn't think that he was going to be the figure to showcase it. And so, when Jeff thinks of something, he doesn't do anything small. It's all or nothing. And so it just grew and grew and grew, and then he became the focus. And as we were doing it, I said, you are fantastic at relating to people and compiling all of this knowledge now that you have the sport with the nutrition and the gear and everything that goes into it, the community, and it can't be wasted.
People have asked me what I use for this, and I'm as surprised as you that I'm still standing, but use this mushroom. It's my go-to. I love it because it's like a prebiotic and it's a whole food. I'm a weird eater, so mentally.
It's a prebiotic?
Yeah, it's like a prebiotic. And it's also like a multivitamin. So for me, I'm big on that stuff. And the kicker is that this stuff actually rocks when it's warm.
So now I think that Triumph is not just triathlons, it's everything that you put into it, everything that you sacrifice for it, and everything that you can share for those sacrifices to the community.
Maybe Triumph's on the other side of fear. Maybe it's everything you want that's on the other side of fear. So whatever it is to you that's holding you back or something like that, I think getting there is the Triumph. Like day 11 and 12, I really started feeling the fatigue of just the efforts.
How you feeling for day 12? Not good.
No?
No. Where's my cap and stuff? No, I'm hurting. My legs are hurting. Oh shit. Wait, I got it. Okay. My knee hurts on my left leg and my right hamstring's just what I was worried about.
I kind of felt like, oh man, I don't know what's going on with this, or am I gonna make it? I had fear of my injury. I have some injuries from like motocross and stuff, and they're all on my right leg. And I had a big fear of that being an impact for me.
You'll never know what you're capable of doing if you don't try, even when you are afraid.
So it may not be the trophy, it may not be, things like that, but I think the intrinsic value is you being able to get yourself further than you would have had you not started at all. And I think a lot of that stems from people being afraid of something. Afraid to start, afraid to try, afraid to fail. So I kind of feel like in some way, shape, or form, it's everything you want on the other side of that. I think that's where you find it.
I think there's so much more to triathlon than just winning, all the time, or even just winning at all. I think that if you complete a race from point A to point B to point C, or however many stages you go through, you've already won.
I think in some ways, it means being bigger than yourself. In the landscape that you're currently in, because I think stuff evolves. I think life evolves. I think you adapt to different situations. But I think being bigger than yourself is sort of the hat I've been trying to kind of fit into.
So you're not necessarily competing against the people. Everybody wants to come in a certain place, but you're also competing against yourself. And I think that's the biggest thing is that sometimes in other sports you tend to hate or dislike the opponent, but I think in triathlons, you're competing against yourself, and that makes you, able to, like and get along with everybody else and cheer everybody else on and bring everybody closer together.
I feel like it's like a method of thinking, being able to kind of like formulate something deploy it and then adapt to it. And I think that's the triumph in it. And I think the triumph comes in the ability to kind of adapt to what you were attempting. You know, I think it's kind of about the journey it took to get you along the way. I think that's where the triumph lies. So to me, I kind of think about being bigger, and I think people seeing that hopefully in turn, you know, gets a mind shift set. I think that's what it means to me, being more than yourself for right now, or instilling a spark of forward progress in someone that might be at a point in their life or a point in a game or something like that where they might feel like they're leveled out.
Oh yeah.
Well, wait, is drafting legal?
The high point for me was day 14.
Day 14, I think it was, that we were in North Carolina was a really great turning point for me. I know it was for him, but for me, on the logistics side, was a big deal because up until that point, it was me with my cell phone, driving the truck for 10 plus hours a day, trying to figure out real routes and food for him, and just basically, working my butt off to try to make sure that he was okay. And day 14, there was a crew. There were people. I think it was the first day that it wasn't just me kind of trying to capture everything.
A good friend of mine that was, kind of involved in the project, that was his hometown, and we met up, and the outpouring of the people that showed up for that, I mean, especially the fact that we were kind of on a weekday, the planning of it all, it was probably the one place that all I needed to do was just show up, and everything was ready to go.
I only hit one spot, so I'm psyched. Only one spot of algae you gotta worry about.
And all these people basically waiting, to get started, and that was like, kind of a choke back tears moment.
I think that really helped energize me for the rest of the run, and I kind of got it at that point. If I can be a part of that and help him do that, then that's what I'm gonna do.
That by far is one of the days that stands out as a pretty top deal. I think ultimately for me, it kind of led to something a lot bigger than I thought. I think if my goal is to just kind of get through the 21 days, that happened. I don't know if that was my sole focus. I feel like when I got started, it was, like make it to the end type of a thing. Like, can I do this? Is anyone even gonna care? Is anyone gonna come out?
Day 16, it has arrived.
I think the effort and the way that the journey kind of was done, I think became almost like its own animal. The triumph component is within us all. I may have been a spark of it, something that said, okay, I'm gonna use this journey and kind of be an ember, if you will, like of this light or what have you. And I think that became something that other people kind of resonated with.
Robert was extremely stressed at work. He wasn't getting any training time in, and he was kind of a little bit, I think, nervous about it. Like, I don't want to like call you out, but you know, since he's come out here, I've seen in Robert like a reignition of the passion that he had for triathlon.
I feel better. I have company.
There's a whole group of people out there that don't really have kind of a voice or a community to do, but Jeff's, you know, little project, his little vacation here, has been kind of a meeting ground for these kind of like-minded amateur people who do this for grins and for fun and for fitness and for health. And so it's been kind of a catalyst for this community to kind of speak and come together. I don't want to say he has an obligation. He doesn't owe any of us anything. Good job, dude.
Hung in there, one more day.
That's it.
I can't believe it. That means I have to do tomorrow. I think if I try to look back and look at it, I think, you know, the end game, unknowing to myself, was that I think it sparked some things in people to kind of go out there and attack things, you know, whatever they may be, but within their own triumphant way. And I hope that I gave rise to that. So I think I accomplished a goal that I never even knew I was trying to do.
The journey was a jumping off point. Now looking back, I think that the intention was met. I think he captured so many great stories. We met so many wonderful people.
Just to be a part of the journey with Jeff and what he's doing, I mean, I'm inspired by him. You know, this is not something that's easy to do, for sure. The fact that he's doing it 21 days in a row is incredible, and that he's still going and he's got such a positive attitude about it today. I mean, it's just amazing to see that, and it inspires me even more to see how much further I can go and to push myself. And you know, it's all about your mindset. You know, if you think you can do it, you can do it.
I definitely fully understand now what his purpose for doing this was, and if I can get it and if it inspires me, then I think that he has inspired everyone.
I've known this crazy guy for about 10 years, I think it's been. We've known each other for about 10 years. He's always been kind of gnarly, but I've never could have fathomed this, how far he's come, and I'm literally speechless is the word. I can't. Holy cow. I literally had no words. There's not a word good enough to describe how awesome I think it is. I wish there was.
I know Jeff knows how proud I am of him. I think he knows how much his kids look up to him and admire him and think that he is the strongest guy ever. And I want him to really truly believe that his message to everybody else is equally as inspiring, because he is the most humble person, and he won't say that he's great at anything. He won't admit that, maybe to himself even, that he has that power, but you know, I think that it's important that he knows that he is that powerful and that he has changed lives, and that's a unique thing.
Let's go back to the corner of the truck and run in for Ted.
Amazing,
Thank
buddy.
you, dude.
Amazing.
Awesome job.
You are amazing.
Nice work, man.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Good job. Yay! Good job.
I love you, man.
To me, if anything I've done has helped anyone in any way, shape, or form, I'll humbly wear that hat. To my fallen friend, Dave Mira, I hope that I was hoping to surprise him with the journey, and that was something we never got to do. So he didn't know about it, and unfortunately, wasn't here to kind of find out. But I hope that, from above type of a thing, he can kind of hopefully be proud, you know, look down and be like, you know, hey, you know, we tackle each other and that's fine. But I'm hoping that, you know, that it made him proud.
World champion X Games, Dave Mira, Cleveland, North Carolina. We did it, buddy. You are an Ironman. One of the most amazing athletes in the world.
So we're out on this bike ride, and this friend said, you know, what kind of mileage are you doing? And I said, well, I'm doing about 100 miles a week. And at the time, I was living in a small town of 1,700 people, so I didn't know if that was a lot or little. I knew no other cyclists. And I said, is that a lot? And she said, yeah, that's a lot of mileage if you ever consider doing a triathlon. And not wanting to sound clueless, I gave an honest answer, which was I really hadn't considered it. And then I went home and Googled the word because I didn't even know what a triathlon was. And that was on October 13th, 2011. And shortly after that, she said, you should come check out our triathlon club in Concord, New Hampshire. And I went to a meeting, met the most wonderful, dynamic, friendly, funny people with just a ton of stories, really cool stories about how they got into this. And I joined the club that evening, and by the end of that evening, I already knew I wanted to do a full Ironman, and went home and penciled it in on my calendar. And I was still 6 months away from doing my first triathlon, and I had already signed up to volunteer at Ironman Lake Placid so I could get a slot for the next year. So yeah, in early July of 2012, I did my first triathlon, did my second one the next day, did my first half-iron triathlon 5 weeks later, right here at the Timberman course in Lake Winnipesaukee, and then the next summer in 2013 did my first full Ironman race. And as of the sprint triathlon that I did 2 weeks ago, I've now done 34 triathlons in 4 seasons.
I didn't really know a whole lot about triathlon. I was fairly active as a kid and growing up. Didn't know anything about this, and somebody said, you ought to do the Timberman sprint. I was like, what makes you think I could do that? And they're like, yeah, I think you'd like it. Okay, so I kind of thought about it for a little while and forgot about it, and then realized that it was the Friday where you go pick up your packet. And I went up and I said, guys, spots left? And they said, yeah, we do. So I signed up for my very first triathlon the night before, and it was Timberman Sprint, which is really crowded. And it's not a terribly easy course. It's a good course, but not terribly easy. And I loved it. It was the most fantastic moment, and I couldn't wait to do it again.
Well, I got into triathlons kind of through running. I would say a majority of people kind of jump into the sport of triathlon through one of the 3 avenues, either the swim, the bike, or the run. For me, it was running. I got into that about 5 years ago. Started with half marathons and 5Ks, and kind of built myself up. There was a trigger event for me that kind of put me into the mindset of I want to go farther. I want to see how far I can push. And so the pinnacle of running for a majority of people is a marathon. It's at 26.2. To just get out there and really prove to yourself, and that you can go out there and do that kind of mileage is something that not a lot of people experience, and it's something that is completely worthwhile once you do experience it. So let me see, I've done four marathons: the Newport Marathon, Hartford Marathon, Boston Marathon, and now Marine Corps Marathon was the last in October of last year. So I've done 4. 2 of them were for charity. One was for the victims of the Sandy Hook tragedy out in Connecticut, which was a very near and dear tragedy in the state of Connecticut. I got into the marathoning because of that, because there were 26 victims in that tragedy, in that event, and that kind of motivated me to take it to the next level, take it to that 26 miles, and then I always say I did 26 miles, one each for each victim, and 0.2 for me.
I actually saw an article about Dave Mira doing triathlon. I was like, triathlon. And I knew who Dave Mira was because, you know, he's one of my childhood idols, you know, being involved in BMX and action sports and stuff like that. I mean, if you don't know who Dave Mira is, then you shouldn't be pedaling a bicycle. So I read about him doing triathlon, and I'm like, oh, that sounds pretty neat. And I kind of put that in the back of my mind. And then on my 33rd birthday last October, I was so overweight, I was out of shape, and I'm like, you know what, I need something to motivate me to go to the gym and actually work out. And I'm like, well, Dave Mira did triathlon. I'm like, you know what, I'll look into doing triathlon. So a month later, I bought a bike. I started going to the gym before work, and I started swimming a little bit, and the rest is history. So I accredit my attempts at triathlon to essentially Dave Mira and Google.
In 2012, I walked away from a domestic violence relationship. I was married for 4 years, and it really was bad, and I didn't know how to get out of it. And my daughter back then, she actually made the call to the police, and you know, I realized this is my time to get out, you know, now that he's in handcuffs and he's in jail. So I decided to start, you know, running in the month of October, which is domestic violence month, and I was running every day. I ran for representing either a victim, a survivor, or, you know, a fallen victim. And I ran, and what I did for every day that I ran, I tattooed their name on my arm also. And, you know, it's like a lot of people always question me. It's like, well, why would you tattoo their name? And, you know, it's like, because the thing is that when I tell my story, people could walk away, and yes, they might take something from it, but at the same time, what happens is words disappear. They walk away, they might forget about you, and they might remember you because someone else brought up the word domestic violence. Oh, I knew someone in domestic violence. And for me to actually tattoo their names, I was letting people know, I was letting some of these women and children know that what happened was real. Because a lot of people still question, oh, that didn't happen, he's a great guy. Or, oh, you know, it's like that, there is no way, you know, it's like, oh, how come you haven't gotten over it? And the whole thing is that domestic violence scars.
I actually started in basketball and football, and once high school ran out, I was looking for something else to compete in, and originally started with cycling. Cycling got a little too long, hundreds of miles of riding, it was a little rough, but triathlon seemed like the perfect medium.
Nice. Did you have a buddy, or was there a club? How did you get involved?
So originally, my younger brother, he actually signed up for a duathlon, and I was a little hesitant at first, but I decided to do it with him. Since then, he's kind of gone on just into cycling alone, and I've gone on to triathlons.
I was obese. Is the short answer. When our second daughter was born, she was crying upstairs, and I went to go get her so that Heather could sleep, and I had to stop. It's not like I have like a 10-story house. Like, I had to stop going up to our second story. And so the next day, went out and bought a pair of tennis shoes and started a Couch to 5K like app or whatever. And then 5K, and then 10K, and then half marathon, and bought a bike.
His company has a charity ride that they help raise money for the MS Society. And so he was like, well, you know, when I'm cross-training from running, I'll just get on my bike and do this like ride from Houston to Austin, which is like 180 miles, because why do anything small? Like, we're gonna go big or go home. And so he started his cycling that way, and he was already running, already cycling. He's like, I'll just pick up the swimming and we'll be done with it.
Yeah.
But it also helps that our life insurance person came out for a physical.
I'm so cheap.
and said, "You're obese, it put you in a different bracket." And so he was like, "Well, I'll save a few bucks and lose a little bit of weight," and it worked out okay.
And that's kind of how it started, right? And then you want your kids to be active, and you don't want to parent from the couch, right? You don't want your kids to be playing and be like, "Hey, Dad, come, let's go do this," and you're like, "No, I'm gonna sit here and not do that." So it was about being an example, and they know that Dad doesn't sleep in on the weekends.
3 years ago, a really good friend of mine and I had just gotten into running. We kind of were just getting back into shape after letting ourselves go a bit over the years. I had been a competitive swimmer for 15 years growing up, and we both she was a swimmer also, we both kind of decided that we wanted to try triathlons and see if we liked it. And we signed up for a race. I didn't have a bike yet. I borrowed a bike a month before the race and just started training. Did the first one and was completely hooked from there on out.
You know, I told Jeff years ago, like, it's on my bucket list to do an Ironman. So that's why I was kind of pumped on this and, like, you know, try to start training a little bit and, you know, to see how this is, to do half one, like holy crap, like, you got some work to do if you ever think you want to do an Ironman, even if you're in shape, you know? And, like, it's just amazing to me.